Okay, we're going.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting of the Land Use Planning and Public Works Committee meeting to order. For roll call, present is Councilor Dombrowski, Councilor Washington, Councilor Soms, Councilor McGrattan, Mayor Allen, Bruce Scotcher from the Agricultural Commission, and Roxanne. At this time, I'll open the floor to citizens' comments. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee?
I would
Go
like
ahead,
to.
Bruce. Yep.
I saw you have in there the proposal for a 5-year lease for Walter Major on the old Clark farm, and I want to speak in favor of it. I know from experience, he wants to put it into hay. The corn market is obviously down. There's not many dairy farms or beef farms around that need corn anymore, the silage. So he wants to put it into hay, and it's an excellent use of the property. It will not, once the hay is down, there won't be any more tillage of it. And what he will have is he will have a market for his hay versus no market for the corn at this time. So I think it's important that we go in that direction. It's a good time to seed the fields is in September, because the grass comes up, the hay comes up, takes hold, and the weed seeds don't. But with this operation that he has, it's a big upfront investment. So that's why I think a 5-year lease is good. It will let him recoup his money, because otherwise on a 1-year lease, if you seed it in the fall, you're not going to see any money, especially if it goes out to bid the following year and somebody else outbids them. So for that reason, I'm in favor of it. And on the same note, I think that going across the brook and clearing that lot to get rid of the brush that we have growing there now, I think that's an excellent choice. I think that's something we should pursue. He can do that, and I know that if he does that, he won't have it done in this year, obviously, but I don't think we should be charging him for the land across the brook until it's ready to be used for profit. And in doing that, if the town could help, I know the town has assets, they have brush mowers that can really chew up brush a lot better than anybody has on a residential type area. Or even a brush hog would not do that, but the type of gorilla cutters that they have today, they can knock that field down, which would bring it back a lot quicker than just going out there with a brush hog or chainsaws. So for that reason, I'm in favor of it. I think 5 years is a good term to recoup his investment. It would also give him opportunity to apply for funding for the state of Connecticut, because they require a lease of longer duration than a year. And this would accomplish that goal. It would also give the town land back. It would keep the land from going up to brush. And I think that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I have no informational items. I'll entertain a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes of February 1st.
So moved.
I'll second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Old business. Discussion and possible action to revise Appendix A Town of Ledyard Hunting Rules and Regulations of Ordinance 100 Tax 018. An ordinance providing for archery hunting on certain town-owned land to remove the Quakertown Founders Preserve Paint Mill Drive located at 334 Colonel Ledyard Highway with transfer of the property to Avalonia Land Conservancy is approved at the special meeting of October 28, 2020. So Roxanne has discussed it with me. She has a couple edits to the current ordinance and the appendix to basically state that the town does no longer own the land, so it does not, so correct to state that certain town-owned land that are owned or allowed to be used on, in my opinion, the way the wording it works, and also corrects the ordinance as well, so that once it gets transferred over and it's in the deed saying that the town can still use that for hunting, I think we're good.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. So I guess I'll make a motion to move forward the archery hunting ordinance number 100 tax 018 and the appendix. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so moved. So now this will go on to admin, if I'm correct, right, Roxanne?
Right, Kevin, but what you want to do is you probably want to make a motion to approve the proposed amendment to the ordinance and to Appendix A.
Okay. You want me to word it that way? Or can I make a motion to
Yeah.
approve the amended ordinance as provided and the appendix?
Right, okay.
So I think we've already voted on it, just a correction of the motion.
Yep.
All right, item number 2, discussion possible action to periodically review the list of town-owned properties. Roxanne informed me that Liz has had back surgery, so she's been out, so she hasn't been able to work on this list. So hopefully it'll be coming. She's feeling better. I know she was at the Ag Rewrite Committee, so the Regulation Rewrite Committee the other night, so hopefully she's getting to amend real quick and she can get some more work done. She's been doing great. So I have no action on that for tonight. Action number 3, continued discussion regarding the process of enforcing regulations to address blight. We have no report, so no action there. Item 4, discussion about potential uses for the Clark Farm. Also have no action other than later on the agenda for the discussion on the possible lease. And status update regarding security and safety concerns regarding park on East Street. Mayor, do you have any update on that?
Just a little bit, in so much as Parks and Recs is actively working on some additional lighting out there, additional cutting of brush to clear that driveway to increase the visibility. And they're also adding several solar powered light fixtures where they can't run electrical conduit to further light that area to try to mitigate the misuse of the property. So it seems to be progressing well. The property owners back there that expressed concern have been apprised of the plans, and the police have cued them into, and they seem to be quite pleased.
Okay, good. I have no other old business on the new business. So discuss Mr. Mace's request to increase the Clark Farm lease from 1 year to 5 years. I guess I'll make a motion to discuss the lease request for Mr. Macer to request the increase of the Clark Farm lease from 1 year to 5 years. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Mayor, anything you'd like to add other than what's already been included in the agenda?
Yeah, so you probably saw the changes that were made on the lease. There was one section titled removable improvements that I put a paragraph in there in green that I'm not comfortable the way it is. So I think we need to try to come up with a solution. And Bruce Gartzka reached out to me today to voice his concern about Mr. Majors being able to access the property across the brook. And I can appreciate that, and I can understand that. And I think we could probably get a reasonable measurement using Google Earth as to how many acres aren't currently accessible over there. But that was the first I'd heard about the town going in to brush hog the fields and whatnot. And
Right.
As you know, a fully burdened cost of a town employee in one of those vehicles is not an inexpensive venture. So I don't know that we could actually do that for, especially when you look at the $80 an acre we're talking about in rent.
Right.
We would demolish probably the first year or two of that gross rent just in clearing those fields. So those are my only concerns. I'm supportive of the use, to continue farming that good farmland soil, but I think those items should probably be addressed.
Mike,
I
go ahead.
also support the idea of going to a 5-year lease. Just looking at the cost on that back lot, if you go through, brush hog it, get it so you can't put it to seed. He's probably 2 years out before getting any good production off of it. But I think a longer term lease is in everybody's interest, because that'll definitely ensure that it stays in a more of a farming type of activity. I can understand the idea of brush hogging the land out there. That's a big nugget. You're talking probably a solid day or two to brush hog it, depending on what you're using. But whatever we could do that isn't going to break the bank per se, if we can assist. And I don't know if we can at $80 an acre for rental.
Right.
It becomes, it turns into kind of a gift in essence. But if he goes through there with a cutter, Walt, I happen to know him personally. The ability to go through there and probably cut it to some degree and just over time, even if that acreage was pulled out from as far as being charged on the lease, but being available to him, and by the end of the 5 years, if he's able to develop that, I think it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same thing. I'm supportive of the 5-year lease. I'm also supportive of the idea of maybe amending the lease at a future time to, only include the front parcel that he would be using today, and then amend the lease at a future date to expand the property. I'm also leery of also saying that the town's going to go pay to do something as well. So
what I would
go ahead, Mike.
What I would think is, because that back partial, whatever acreage it is, someone's got to go and spend the money to just make it so it's mowable. My take would be, if we include that portion of the acreage in the lease agreement, in the 5-year lease agreement, but don't charge him the $80 an acre for that section on the premise that he's going to go and expend his money to clear it and get it set up. I'm okay with that, even if in the end he's able to burn off, should I say, he's able to generate more revenue by far than what it's going to cost him to do the work. But when the end of the 5-year lease is over, if we can have a field over there that's mowable, it's worth I wouldn't care if we got a dime for the acreage over the 5 years if he can get it so it's mowable like the front portion.
I agree. I agree. But to your point, yeah, and maybe you're right. Maybe it's just only the usable to be paid for in the lease, but and not take it out, not take the whole parcel out of the property. To your point, off the lease, I agree.
So maybe something along the lines of it's included, but at the point that Mr. Majors is actively farming it and has seeded it, then maybe the $80 per acre fee kicks in for the stuff across the brook.
Right.
Yep.
So
That sounds good.
that's on. I agree to that. I'm amenable to that at all. So I'm looking at your text that you added that you're not real comfortable with in there.
Yeah, my concern, of course, was we say no permanent fixtures, and then we say removing such improvements. I'm almost more comfortable, and I think I am more comfortable just saying no permanent fixtures. There are no, because that constitutes building buildings.
Correct.
So there are no buildings. The red steel barn does not go with this. It is just the land, but maybe we just need to clarify that. And I think at some point somewhere in here it did say, it said first paragraph under property description, it said with all improvements thereon.
Right.
So we had to strike that because Parks and Recs and Public Works uses that red steel barn for storage.
Yep. I'm almost okay with not adding in your text language that you've added, just leaving it the way it is. It says the landlord agrees to allow the tenant to make minor improvements of a temporary or removable nature which do not mar the conditions of the lease at the lease premise at the tenant's expense. Boom. End of story.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think you need that next paragraph in there at all, or the next sentence. I don't think it adds anything.
Given the fact the land is really going to just be used to get hayed, I don't see there being him putting up another structure or something is it's extremely remote at
Right.
best.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
But to the point, if he was to put up a structure, it would not be temporary. It would fall under all the improvement requirements. The 824 review, site plan, planning, zoning, wetlands, if it's near the brook, any of that stuff, all those permitting process would come into play
Yes.
for any structure, even if it's temporary, to tell you the truth.
Yep. Yes.
So I think just strike that out, that, Mayor. I think just striking that.
Yeah, I agree.
I would
Just-
concur.
Yep, absolutely.
So other than that, I'm good with the lease. Mike, you're okay?
Yep. No, I like the lease.
Okay,
Just the only concern was knowing that he's at acreage. I'd like to see somebody mow and bring back that back portion. So it's mowable, and then it just adds on to the walk.
Yeah, that portion of this property was kind of off limits for a while because the beavers had dammed it up.
right,
And the Joe Clark Brook there that might have been 4 to 6 feet wide became unpassable.
unpassable, right.
So I think now that the beavers have left the building, we can, we can access it reasonably well.
So I'm kind of looking at this at our agenda and finding we've kind of like morphed into item number 2, because I think we all agree with the premise of the 5-year lease. Now it's just a matter of actually approving the lease. And the next part is Mr. Major make improvements such as brush cutting to enable crossing the brook to access. And the improvement would be at Mr. Major's expense. I think
Yes.
so. So I think I'm going to have to amend the motion, basically say that we approve the lease as amended. In addition, authorize Mr. Major to make improvements such as cutting brush to enable crossing the brook to access the lot on the other side. Improvement would be at Mr. Major's expense. And also any permitting requirements would need to be followed as well. Because we can't authorize Mr. Major to cross wetlands without having a wetlands permit or whatever, planning and zoning permits would be required for that temporary structure. We can't authorize that. We can authorize him to start the negotiations or start the process. Now, I think the other part is any improvement. So if Mr. Major wants to put Roxanne or Mayor, you might be able to help me on this one. I can't remember. But if he wants to put a bridge or some sort of structure that crosses over the pond, would that include an improvement of town property that would require an 824 review? I would think it would.
I would say yes.
Yeah. So
There was actually, once the beaver damage drained down, there are 2 concrete abutments that cross the brook at a pinch point.
okay.
So it's very possible that could be repurposed for a crossing, for a farm type crossing once again.
Okay. All right. So, with that being said, any other discussion? So all those. Oh, go ahead, Roxanne.
So the motion is basically going to say that, let me just go back over here. Motion to approve, I lost my spot, give me a second.
Okay.
Let me go back over here. Okay, so it's going to be a motion to approve an amended lease agreement regarding the Clark property with Mr. Majors. In addition, improvements would be made at Mr. Majors' expense in accordance with the proper permits and land use approvals required.
Correct.
Okay, so now if we're going to approve this lease, the other lease because it was a year-to-year thing, we didn't have to have a public hearing, but because this is kind of like a new lease, we need to do that?
Yes.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion to set a public hearing tonight too, or do you want to kind of,
When would
Smooth out
finance, well, I'm gonna ask Bill, when would finance be able to look at this?
probably next
We
week?
could do it.
In March.
Um,
Oh, no, we already
we do
posted
it-
that agenda. March
Can we do it this
17th.
week?
Well,
How about this week?
amend the agenda tomorrow to add it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we have a pretty light agenda.
I think there's only
You
one
do-
item on there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to let the finance committee then set the public hearing date?
Yeah. Only that way it gives everybody time to go look to see what's on, because I know we have a public hearing on the 10th already.
Right.
So if admin needs to look at it, do they need to look at it first?
Admin doesn't normally look at leases, do they?
Mary?
Oh, right. Yeah, I was thinking because of the prior discussion. Yeah,
Right.
never mind.
Okay. All right, so I'll amend the agenda tomorrow to add this and to set the public hearing date, and I think we're good. Okay. Ready to vote?
Yeah.
Now that I.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That's all I have. I have no other new business to come before the committee. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting at 6:22.
Oh, that's quick.
That's-
Have a good night,
That's
everybody.
Have a good night.
Records.
Good night, everybody.
See you
Night,
soon.
everybody.
Got it. Get well, Bill.
Well
Thank
done.
you. Working on it.
Good.